These protocols that came to light in the 1800s tell the story of the manipulation of the 20th century, the very manipulation that is being documented all over the world today. They outline the game plan of the 20th century in the most extraordinary way in documents that were written before the 20th century had even begun. And if we are not adult enough to divorce the two issues of what the protocols contain and who has been quite wrongly blamed for them, then we are going to be a manipulator's dream. Because it's the subtle shades of grey where we'll find the reality of what's going on. And even then, it's not easy. We are at the time in human evolution when we need to grow up spiritually and awaken to our true and infinite potential for love, for creativity, and forgiveness of all that has gone before in this tapestry of pain and pleasure that we call life on earth. I've talked for many years, sometimes to the sound of laughter, though increasingly less so, that we are in a period of enormous change. That over the period between now and maybe 2020, 2030, we will see change that from the perspective of today will beggar belief. The more I've kind of investigated it, the more I've read other people's opinions and other people's research, the more I've, in my own mind anyway, come to appreciate the nature of this change, which you can take or leave because it's only a view. I've kind of read stuff and talked to people about an explanation that feels compellingly good to me. And that is that there is a great circle of energy within this galaxy, which is centered on a cluster of stars known as the Pleiades. And this ring of energy is a bit like, if you think about the rings of Saturn, similar to that, only it's not physical. It is highly charged, massively powerful energy. And goes way out from that cluster of stars. Because everything in creation, and certainly everything in this solar system and beyond, is in orbit. Like if you look at the inside of an atom, it's a series of things in orbit. You take on to the next stage, you've got a planet going round in orbit round the sun. The solar system is in orbit. Everything is in orbit, moving around a central point. And it's been worked out by a number of people, indeed there's been a whole book now produced about it, that this solar system passes through this ring of highly charged energy once every 10 to 12,000 years. Goes through one side, through the center, through the other side, round, and 12,000 years later, or whatever, the process goes on and on. Which is kind of interesting because it's projected that we are now entering this process of going through this highly charged energy again. And if you go back 10, 12,000 years, the last time we would have gone through this process on the explanation that I'm putting forward would have been the time of the end of this so-called mythical, but I believe very real civilization known as Atlantis. When an energy field, be it a planet or whatever, goes through this beam of highly charged energy, and it's been estimated again, it takes about 2,000 years to go right the way through it, that energy field is massively energized and rebalanced. So, if an energy field is massively out of balance, this process is going to move it in vibratory terms very quickly a very long distance, which kind of means all hell's going to break loose, because everything is energy. The weather's energy. Geological events are energy, etc., etc. We are energy. Everything's energy. Everything's thought. So the more out of balance an energy field is, the more severe the implications of this rebalancing process that happens as a natural sequence every 10 to 12,000 years. So whether this process of change, and when you look at the ancient writings and so many common themes through the generations, be it the Native American Indians, be it the Nostradamus thing, be it way back into ancient times, the Maya in Central America, and the early part of this millennium, they're all pointing to a period of great change in the period that we are going into. Now, people may dismiss that, but I'm looking all the time for common themes, and I'm seeing, through the 2,000 to 3,000 letters that I receive every year, people tell me their life stories and what's happening to them. I am seeing people of all different walks of life suddenly going through great change at this time of thinking, of perception, of everything. Something is changing that is very different to what we've been used to. So the more we could balance this energy field called Earth with harmony, with love, as opposed to all the other stuff we see around the world, the less painful will be this great change that we're heading into. This Illuminati game plan that I'm talking about cannot succeed because this process of going through this rebalancing process will bring it to an end. On the other side of it, whatever happens is going to be a very different world and a very much better world. The reason it's very important to highlight what's going on and to do something about it is because a lot of people, a lot of genuine people, are going to be led up the garden path to do things that they really ought to not be doing because they don't know what the game plan is. And also, the whole basis of the manipulation is to divide us and is to get us to judge each other, to hate each other, to envy each other, to compete with each other, and therefore create the very opposite thought patterns, energies that are necessary at this time. The way I kind of see the process of what's happening to so many people in the world now is that when the consciousness becomes incarnate in a physical body, not all of the consciousness is subject to the great limitations of the body, only that which I'll call the conscious level. What has become known as the subconscious and higher conscious levels of us are not subject to the great limitations of the physical body, and therefore they have a much wider picture. In simple terms, if you saw the conscious level working through the physical body as the spaceman on the moon in the spacesuit, and the subconscious and higher as mission control, you see the symbolic difference between the two. One is experiencing and subject to the pressures of this level, the other one has the wider picture. What kind of happens in this very imbalanced world that we're born into is that the two get divorced from each other. Imagine spaceman on the moon in the big spacesuit. He's got information coming in through the eyes and the ears that tell him about what's going on immediately around him. That's one source of information and perception. But he's also getting mission control that has the wider picture speaking to him, and so he's got two sources of information, the wider picture of the mission and the localized here and now around him information. Now that's great, that's a great balance, and therefore he's got a perception of the whole picture. What would happen, however, if someone came along and snipped or dramatically reduced the power of his link with mission control? Suddenly, there he is, stuck in this very limiting spacesuit, and the only information that he is receiving in which to perceive and behave and decide is suddenly coming in through the eyes and the ears. It wouldn't be long after that point was reached when his behavior and perception would be dramatically different to what it would have been had mission control been part of his information source.